I was on the board and Pat O'Neill replaced me, and she served for 20 years. So you would be the third one running for this district. But with a view to looking at the entire MCPS and how it's changed. And yet the system hasn't changed since I was there. We have now the largest student group is a minority group, the Latino community, and this is the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. So I want you to focus a little bit more about the need to make this a priority, because we're nowhere. It's invisible. Our voices are not heard. As a matter of fact, these 3 listening sessions that the superintendent, acting superintendent, they're not directed to the Latino community, and there are no Spanish translators, and the flyer went out only in English. So it is really insulting for the Latino community, being the largest proportion, the lack of any kind of high level. And only the board can make that high level priority to go after the learning needs and the cultural needs of the parents of the the Latino students. And we have seen that this superintendent, I was part of the interviews, she has had very little experience with teaching the multicultural Latino culture, and she doesn't give it the high priority that I think it's warranted in view of the number of students there. So I can go on, but I just want this for you to focus. I know you have access to resources, but there is no emphasis for ESOL students and even for non-ESOL students, because not every Latino is an ESOL student. And we have the lowest scores, we have the lowest parental participation, and the lack, probably the highest feeling of a community feeling disengaged and unrepresented and really not respected by Montgomery County Public Schools. So I just want to put my two cents in there, and I hope that we have a board that rises up beyond the historic previous ones, but that will say, no, we're not doing our job that we're supposed to do as an MCPS with this kind of demographics.
I completely agree, and I hear your frustration and share it. It is not only the fact that we're dealing with language and culture, but we're also dealing with the fact that the fastest growing population among Montgomery County Public Schools are refugees. So not just coming to us with language challenges, let me say English learning challenges, or not knowing the language and having to learn English, but also being traumatized, coming from Afghanistan, especially, which is where the largest number of students are currently coming from. There's a lot that we're doing to serve them, but I know that's not quite your question, so I am going to come back to that. But that is right now our sort of crisis, if you will, because the population of MCPS has actually gone down the last couple of years. The population of refugees has gone up, and we're dealing with that in a number of ways through our new Welcome Center, which will also be welcoming families from Central and South America and other places as well. And we think that it's important that we are helping, not just getting them access to schools, but also understanding the various forms they need to fill out, the services that are available. It's not yet up and running. It was just initiated, and it's a big priority for this board, and certainly of mine to make sure that that's a success. The second point I would say is that just several weeks ago, the district briefed the board on some success that they're having with the pilot studies for Spanish language co-teaching with English ESL teachers and general education teachers. It's still small, and we know that it needs much more to do, and that's a big area of focus of mine. Is how do we, again, the same thing I sort of mentioned with Anne's question about literacy, is how do we take something that we've already seen to be very successful and scale it to a larger number of classrooms and schools? And in my mind, the answer to that question is two things. One is, right now we're in a teacher shortage. So trying to address that issue, for any issue, is incredibly challenging. I can't emphasize that enough. I do think that the increased pay that we are offering, and we will be continuing to increase thanks to the Maryland Blueprint, will be helpful. And I think it's going to be important that we prioritize teachers who can speak more than just English. So we certainly need Spanish, but we also need speakers of Chinese, Amharic, and many other languages as well. It's an incredibly diverse school system. So that's one issue, is growing our own teachers so that we can have the skills that we need to best serve the students. And as you're correctly noting, that's an increasingly large number of students whose first language is Spanish. The other part of that is what I mentioned again about literacy, which is that MCPS has always been, as you know, Anna, has always been very good at throwing programs and resources out there, but not necessarily paying very much attention to the impact and effectiveness of those programs. And again, I think that's the sort of unique ability that I have as someone who teaches program evaluation, someone who works with school systems on performance management issues, is how do you create indicators of implementation, track that progress in the short term, make adjustments, and then continue to grow the program in a way that is most likely to benefit the most students. It's a real challenge you point out. It's something that we have not done a good job of, and it's something that we need to do better. I don't know if you have any other thoughts or suggestions on how to do that.